From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. The president's doctor says his vital signs are stable and he's reporting no symptoms as he continues treatment for the coronavirus at the White House. But another of his top aides, Stephen Miller, has tested positive for the virus now. President Trump is also dealing with backlash after halting COVID relief bill negotiations. Deborah Alfarone is at the White House with more.
President Trump ended coronavirus negotiations with congressional Democrats over demands for state and local funding, tweeting, "I am rejecting their request. Immediately after I win, we will pass a major stimulus bill." House Speaker Nancy Pelosi accused President Trump of putting himself first at the expense of the country. CBS News has learned that several senior military leaders will quarantine after coming into contact with the Vice Commandant of the Coast Guard, who has tested positive for COVID-19. The president downplayed the coronavirus as less lethal than the flu in a tweet. Twitter flagged it as, quote, spreading misleading and potentially harmful information. The president also says he's looking forward to participating in next week's presidential debate in Miami, Florida.
The president's intention is to go and participate in the debate in person, and we'll be relying on the world's best medical experts to clear him to do that. 2020
Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden called for unity during a campaign speech in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Too many Americans seek not to overcome our divisions, but to deepen them. We must seek not to build walls, but bridges.
Meanwhile, the 2020 vice presidential contenders continue to test negative ahead of their Wednesday debate. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
Well, upon his return to Delaware this evening, former Vice President Joe Biden said he and President Trump should not debate next week if the president still has the coronavirus. Another day and another record number of COVID-19 positives here in Montana. The state reporting 504 new cases today, surpassing the previous high that was set just this past Saturday. And now another grim milestone as well, as 200 Montanans have now died from COVID-19. Flathead County had the most new cases today with 124. Yellowstone County reported 46 new cases. Plus, the outbreak continues to grow in Columbus at the Caslin Meadowlark Assisted Living Facility. Today, they are reporting 5 new cases, 3 residents and 2 staff members, bringing the total outbreak to 14. The state also announced 2 more deaths, one in Glacier, another in Stillwater County, and then later this afternoon, Missoula County reported another death to bring the death toll to an even 200. MTN's also reporting 15 additional hospitalizations, bringing that number to 216 active hospitalizations now. Montana has nearly 16,000 confirmed positives. Well, we told you yesterday that Yellowstone County could be headed toward even tighter restrictions if cases continue to climb for the month of October. That would mean even fewer people allowed into restaurants, bars, and places of worship. Well, county restaurants have been operating at 75% capacity since June 1st. That percentage could shift down to only 25% at the end of the month if the positivity rate rises above 40 per 100,000. Q2's Mitch Leahy brings us reaction from 2 local restaurants.
In Billings, restaurant owners are feeling uncertainty at the prospect of having to shift back down to 25% of their total capacity if COVID-19 cases don't slow down by October 31st. If the county sees 452 new cases or more in the final week of October, Health Officer John Felton said more restrictions would be put in place, including reduced capacity at restaurants, bars, and casinos, with bars forced to close at 10 p.m. At the 406 Kitchen and Tap Room, management is scared about what could be down the road. Managers said the 406 just isn't viable as a business at 25% capacity and would have to supplement its business with takeout orders, similar to what happened with the first shutdown earlier in the year. The story is much the same at Montana Brewing Company, a restaurant that staffs 100 employees. Both of the local restaurants got help earlier in the year from the federal Paycheck Protection Program loans. Those loans won't be available if the county-wide restrictions are put in place at the end of October.
I've tried to fill out all the grants that have been offered and just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Unfortunately, like we just got to all do our part. As I said, I've got 50 employees I have to think about,
That federal program helped a ton, but now as we move forward into this, all that's gone. If we go down to 25%, you know, that's going to be a gigantic impact. And it's not just for us, you know, it's for all the restaurants, all the businesses, you know, churches are also on this deal where they have to reduce to 25%. So there's a big countywide impact.
Both restaurant managers urged the community to wear their masks, keep their distance, and wash their hands frequently so the restaurants can stay open and their staff members employed. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. Sean Graves with the Montana Brewing Company added that he's pleased that there's about a 3 weeks notice before any restrictions would take in effect if they do happen. That was compared to March, where there was only a few days noticed. Well, in this year of COVID-19, a lot of things have happened that we'd never expect, and it's no different for students. Their lives have certainly changed, starting with masks. Our own Janelle Slade checked in at one Billings Middle School and found out beyond the nuisance for some kids, masks are actually turning into a motivator.
Do I have to keep it on all the time? Can't I have a break? How come we have to wear these?
The words Lewis and Clark counselor Mackenzie Umamoto expected to hear for the rest of the year when school started up just about 7 weeks ago. But the complaints didn't last long.
The kids have their expectations outlined for them ahead of time so they know what door they're supposed to come to. They come in those doors in the morning. They are supposed to go right to class.
Educators believe by setting clear expectations from day one helped remove some of the unknown and anxiety.
The first day I think was probably the hardest day because I wasn't used to it and it was all just new and weird.
7th grader Marin Rice says her mask gets hot. She has to talk louder, and it's sometimes hard to tell how her classmates are feeling. But she'd rather wear it than have to go home.
The kids are so happy to be at school that I haven't got any complaints about wearing their masks. The biggest concern is that if they lose their mask or they break the strap on the ear, you know, or something, and they go, what do I do now? You know, they're pretty open with, they want to be here and they're going to do everything they can to stay here.
But masks are not without their challenges and impacts on our children.
They really want to just be kids and be with their friends. So like at lunchtime, we have them spread apart.
Yeah, we all get really annoyed by that because it's really hard to talk. So usually we sit in like a triangle, because then that's a lot easier to talk, but it's still really annoying because we can't like look at each other.
So they're really missing out on that. They have to be in smaller groups, and then, you know, we have them 6 feet away from each other, and it kind of makes that social part a lot harder.
There are, of course, other challenges right now that these students and teachers have never faced, but they're masking up, motivated, and facing them together.
We talk to our kids all the time about this being safe with each other, you know, and understanding that it is very serious, that if you're in direct contact with somebody and they have to go home because of COVID, then you have to go home because of COVID. So they wear their masks all the time.
In Billings, Janelle Slade, MTN News.
Well, the students and staff at Lewis and Clark tell us they're grateful for the nice weather because they can go outside for lunch and for breaks during their long classes. Once the cold moves in, lunch will be spread out throughout the cafeteria and the rest of the school. Now, police are still investigating a shooting in central Billings that happened Sunday night. It was originally reported that it all started as a fight between neighbors over pet dogs, but now Billings police say the investigation is ongoing to the events leading up to that altercation. The victim was shot in the head just before 8 o'clock Sunday night in the 1300 block of Custer Avenue. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers do believe there may have been a struggle because the suspect had scratches on his head. Officers also found the victim was armed with a gun. The names of the 2 men involved and any possible charges have not yet been released. Republicans who filed a lawsuit to stop widespread mail voting in Montana this coming election are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to get involved now. A federal judge in Missoula last week ruled against the Republican lawsuit, saying there is no evidence of voter fraud connected to mail voting. The GOP plaintiffs then appealed to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals and asked it to stop Montana counties from sending out mailed ballots this week. The appeals court rejected that request Tuesday, and now Republicans have asked the U.S. Supreme Court to step in. 45 of Montana's 56 counties are preparing to mail ballots to all registered voters on Friday. Democratic Governor Steve Bullock issued an order in early August allowing counties to decide to go to all mail ballots during the COVID-19 pandemic because of health concerns. The GOP lawsuits, including one filed by President Trump's campaign and national Republicans, said Bullock's order is improper and should be voided. The federal appeals court plans to hear the case early next year, but well after the election. Hundreds of flu shots were given out at the Montana VA Medical Center in Fort Harrison today. MTN's John Riley met with frontline nurses who say now more than ever, it's time to get a flu shot.
It was a busy Tuesday morning at the Montana VA Medical Center at Fort Harrison as car after car lined up for influenza vaccinations. This is the 10th year the Montana VA has held their drive-through flu shot clinic, with more than 800 vaccinations given at the same drive-through clinic last year. Registered nurse Katie Temple says with COVID having similar symptoms to influenza, this year is more important than ever to get vaccinated.
And so it's super important to get your flu shot to protect yourself, but also to protect those who are in your life that might be immunocompromised over the age of 65. Those other people around you that you might not even think that you could spread the flu virus to, even if you don't get sick.
While most people that contract influenza every year are able to recover without major complications, some do not. In Montana, there were 26 confirmed influenza deaths last flu season, with hundreds of hospitalizations across the state. Temple says getting vaccinated helps reduce the chance of those who are most at risk, the elderly and young children, from contracting the virus. Earlier this year, Temple was deployed to Arizona to help with the COVID response of the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation was hit particularly hard by COVID, currently reporting more than 1,000 positive cases with over 500 deaths. Temple said bluntly, influenza and COVID together could overwhelm the healthcare system.
All I can think is it would just multiply because the symptoms are very similar. And if you put the flu on top of COVID-19, the impact on the healthcare system would be huge.
If you're a member of VA Healthcare and you weren't able to get a flu shot, know that shots are available across the state at VA clinics. If you're not a member of VA Healthcare, shots are also available at pharmacies, your doctor, or public health. Reporting at Fort Harrison, John Riley, MTN News.
Still ahead on the MTN 9 o'clock news, a legend remembered. We look back at the life of one of the best to ever shred a guitar, Eddie Van Halen. But first, Bob McGuire's in next with your full 7-day forecast.